Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. If only, however, an abbreviated show. We have the subject of Chris Christie and the economy to talk about, and we have the subject of the Titanic executive pay. And then I got to get out of here to go ahead and start packing those things so that it'll fit on the airplane appropriately. So Mr. Rudnin asked me if how is my preparation for Netroots going? Stressful. I had to get the program for KPFT ready for tomorrow so that it automatically go on auto drive and get it run into the studio, etc., etc. I just got through doing that. I have some other stuff that I did with the thing. So it's going fine, but un poquito stressful as it is every single year because there always seems to be not enough time in a day. But you know what, guys? I love it. We all love it, right? That is what we do. That is what all of us do. We all do all this stuff together and we make a difference. That's what I like to get in everybody's head. We are making what again? A difference. Anyhow, welcome aboard E2247. Welcome aboard my brother Eric Hayes. Welcome aboard Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard Breach MCP. And my brother from Atlanta, Paul Fleming Sr. How are you doing, sir? Who am I missing so far? Let me go down the list again to make sure that I get all my peeps in that came into the show early. Don't want to miss anybody. If I've missed you, forgive me. Lee Grant. Lee Grant, did I miss you a few times? I think you were persona... whoa, I forgot what missing is in Spanish. Persona no encontrado. That's not the right word. That's just another way of saying it because I can't remember what missing is. Falta, que está faltando. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Eric Hayes, de-Trumpification. I love that. Let's see what de-Trumpification. Oh, me gusta. You know what? Why don't you guys give me some great phrases like that to put on a t-shirt so I can get my printer to put that on and add it to the revenue stream here at Politics Done Right. Let me put that on the screen for you, Brother Rudnin. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. Egberto gave us all his good dissertation on cluster bombs, war activities, and morality yesterday. Yeah, I did that at KPFT. I don't know if I cut that out, but I probably need to cut that out. Thank you for saying that. Here's the difference. The new Miss Netherlands is a guy. Oh, my God. I didn't know that. Is that true? Come on, let's make sure that it's the truth, but I don't know. I trust my brother Lee Grant though, so it must be true. Our old story on Mr. B telling fibs on being in the top of his class, which was so wrong. Yeah, I guess so. Egberto, yeah, that T-shirt is straight from Bo from the fifth column. De-Trumpification, the consistent opposition to those who enable Trump and the effort to remove them from public office. I love it. Me gusta eso. Me gusta eso. Okay, what else we got? E2247 says the threat of cluster munitions to civilians outweighs any potential tactical benefits. And I tend to agree with that. What else have we got? Any other stories here for people to tell me before I go into the video? Because like I said, today, I don't want to go past 25 minutes because I got to rush out there and get a whole lot of work done. But I want to make sure that I cover all of you with whatever it is that you guys want me to say real quickly. So if there's things that you want me to throw out there to the ethos now, please put it out there now because I got to get out of here in 22 minutes. Brie says, Ricky Coley makes history as first transgender Miss Netherlands. I want to be a voice. Nice. Nice. I don't have a problem with that. Lee, I want to ask a question. Why does gender so bother whatever people want to do with their genders, right? What is it intrinsically that so bothers people about it? And by the way, I don't want to play Mr. Goody Two-Shoe. I learned to have made these things bother me. Gender specificity and that sort of stuff. It used to bother me. And in fact, my carnal memory, I think still has, yes, 4:30. my carnal memory still every so often reacts in a chauvinist manner on certain specific issues, right? Like I told folks, I've extricated my sexism, and that sort of stuff out of my body, my homophobia, etc. But every now and then there's something that creeps up that is based on a specific issue. Let me give an example. I completely believe in the equality of men and women from a mental standpoint, etc. But every now and then I always jump to do things for women. And like I would say, like even at Netroots, I made mistakes a few years ago, and I open the door and at the same time I say, well, that's what a man's supposed to do. Those kind of things that remain in your psyche, right? And I remember one woman turning around and saying something to the effect of, that has nothing to do with being a man. You're just being a courteous person. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I need to get rid of some of those things as well. So anyway, Lee Grant says, do boys in the girls' room bother you? The truth of the matter, boys in the girls' room would not bother me if we had groomed boys and girls to be respectful of all human beings. If you go to certain African tribes in the middle of nowhere, or certain tribes in Australia or whatever, the people go around with naked. They're around each other, women and men alike, and it's not a sexual thing; it's a human thing, right? So we have a lot of issues that we within our culture did the separation of women and men and particularly hurt, right? Egberto, will you show Rudnin's image on the trans women, please? Where is it? Okay. Oh, wow. Could have fooled me. There you go. There you go. Anyway, it's there. Anyhow, folks, let's go ahead and start with the video. Let me tee it up this way. Chris Christie appeared on Morning Joe today. I think MSNBC is really trying to give him some legs, right? Beat up on Trump some. So it was a very long interview. He occupied several segments, and they asked him about gender stuff. They asked him about abortion stuff. They asked him about international stuff, etc. But there was one 4-minute segment in there that I cut out that I thought was very problematic on the part of Joe Biden. And why did I think it was problematic? The reason it was problematic is because Joe assertively stated the fact of the state of our economy and how good it is, and the good work, in as much as it's not as good as what those of us who are progressives want it to be, the good work that brother Joe Biden did with the economy. And Christie couldn't point out specifically what's wrong with Biden other than overspending and inflation, right? But everything else is great. And then he said something at the end that needed to have been challenged by Joe Scarborough that he didn't challenge. I want you to listen to this segment, and then we'll take it on the other side because it is very, very important. And I think if we if we challenge Republicans on those terms, the terms that I'm going to talk about after the video, I think it's a blowaway win if we can change it to an economic issue as well as the standard issue on abortion. The affirmative action issue, I don't think is going to be a big play at all. I really don't. In fact, I heard a commentary yesterday that made me think twice. But anyhow, let's listen to this and then we'll take it on the other side.
I want to talk policy with you, and let's talk economy. I just jotted down some things about the economy that right now seem to be very strong. And my question, you can trash Joe Biden if you like. I'm not saying you will. I'm saying I'm more interested in how do you improve upon these things. We obviously have some structural problems. We've got debt. We've got inflation going down a bit. But unemployment over the past year has been at an all-time low. The dollar's been at a generational high. America's GDP, we've shot up to 25 trillion, while China and the rest of the world stagnated. Obviously, largest, strongest economy in the world. Childhood poverty at an all-time low. Manufacturing is actually exploding for the first time in some time. This is one that I find so interesting, especially if you look at the right track, wrong track number. About 75% of Americans say that they're in pretty good shape economically, either in pretty good shape or really good shape economically, and yet we have the right track, wrong track going in the wrong direction. That's a bit of an understatement. So given that we're doing some things really well as a country, and I never put that on any Republican, any president, Republican or Democrat, but some things are going really well compared to the rest of the world economically. What's Joe Biden doing wrong? But also, how do you build on this success?
Well, he's wildly overspent, Joe, and what's done is not only add monumentally to our national debt, which we didn't need to see happen, but it's also created this inflation. I think the answer to your question about, in light of those numbers, why do people still feel we're on the wrong track? It's inflation, because inflation is the thing that people feel every day. They go to the gas station, they feel it. They go to the supermarket, they feel it. They go to the clothes store to buy clothing for themselves or their children. They go to any place. And inflation is the hidden tax that makes them feel every day like they're falling further behind. And so despite some of those things you just said, if you don't get inflation under control, inflation is a presidency killer. Ask Jimmy Carter, who is Joe Biden's favorite president. I mean, fact is, it killed Jimmy Carter's presidency, and I believe it will be the single economic factor that will kill Joe Biden's presidency as long as we don't nominate Donald Trump. And so what we need to do is to make sure that we get spending back under control. And let me be candid about this. Donald Trump did a lousy job at that too. And so did the Republican Congress. And so we've lost some credibility on that. But as you all remember, when we first became acquainted, in 2010, I inherited an $11 billion deficit on a $29 billion budget and balanced that budget by cutting 863 programs and didn't raise taxes. The fact is that these things can be done over time, but they have certainly, both Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden have all dug this country a huge debt hole that they have left us, all of them adding to the national debt in trillions of dollars. And so that's, Joe, the argument that needs to be made, because until people start feeling like their paycheck outpaces their costs to raise their families, this is not going to change in terms of the right track, wrong track number.
Okay, here is where, let me get that picture off the screen. It's a bit distracting. Here is where I think Joe Scarborough failed royally. The only thing that Christie could legitimately complain about was inflation. That's number one. Number two, he falsely stated what was the genesis of our deficit. I'll take the latter first. I'll take the deficit first. Let's remember, and for those, many of you are younger, but many don't remember 1979, the last year of Jimmy Carter, where we had a small deficit, relatively speaking. Then Reagan he came up with a product called supply side economics, Reaganomics, right? And Reaganomics pretended that it could zoom the military budget real high. It could cut a whole lot of taxes and at the same time balance the budget. An impossibility, but that's what he ran on. And then Bush number one, George Bush's daddy, called it voodoo economics until the two of them ran together on the ticket. And what did Ronald Reagan do? Ronald Reagan did exactly what he said he's going to do, except that he didn't balance the budget. He put the budget into an ever-increasing amount of, it zoomed like it had never before in our history. That's what Reagan did. And he got reelected. Why? Because Reagan learned something that Cheney and all of these guys know. Deficits in a kind of economy we have does not matter. But what deficit does is it creates a hell of a lot of economic activity. And that's what it did. It created a hell of a lot of economic activity. And voila, Reagan won, but he zoomed up the budget in the process. Oh my God, but what happened after that? After that, Bush #1 came in, and by the time it caught up, he had to go against his promise of no new taxes, and he raised taxes to help bring the budget deficit down. And then came Clinton, who balanced the budget, the first president in eons to balance the American budget. So Reagan exploded the deficit. He exploded the debt. Then came Bush, who started to bring the debt down, and Clinton came and totally eliminated not the debt, but the deficit. We were on we were bringing in more money than we were spending under Clinton. I have that all documented in my book as I see it. And then came Bush #1. And Bush #1, the first thing he did, big tax cuts. And when that tax cut came in, it zoomed the budget deficit. When his second term come, he gave big tax cut again. And he even asked the guys, his guy, he said, didn't we give rich people their money already? And they said, yes, but we want more tax cut. The budget again zoomed right through the roof. Of course, he tanked the economy. And after he tanked the economy in 2008, there comes Barack Obama having to recover all the crap by spending money in a particular way to recover from Bush. So what you see on the elation here, Republicans come, destroy the budget with tax cuts and overspending. The Democrat comes and try to clean up the mess. The Republican come in and does the same thing again. Same thing occurred right after Obama. Trump comes in and he blew the budget away with a ridiculous tax cut, etc. The premise that was used by Chris Christie should have been immediately knocked by Scarborough, who didn't do it. But let's go further. And after that, the next thing that he didn't answer, it was inflation. Oh, Biden caused inflation. Biden did not cause inflation. And inflation, the rates that inflation reached had very, very little to do with supply chain and pandemic. If you take a look at the profits of corporations, this money didn't come from nowhere. The excessive profits, what's called the windfall profits from corporations, came not from them making things more efficiently, but simply charging more. And what is the definition of a company charging more? It's called inflation. So who created inflation? The private sector and not Joe Biden. We have to learn these things or we continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. All right, let's see what else we got here now. We have, welcome aboard, Melanie Keelan. Great to see you here. Paul Fleming says, Small, when you have gas at your house, do you have a men's and women's bathroom or do they just go to the bathroom? What is the time in Europe? There's common everywhere shares restaurant. We just line up and go wash our hands, open the room. Yeah, exactly. This stuff that America has is puritanically silly. Carter couldn't bring home the Iranian hostages before the 80 election, had a failed rescue attempt. The hostages were released on Reagan's inauguration. Actually, no, it's no longer suspicious. Reagan caused these guys not to come home. He sent somebody to go and talk to them and say, wait till later on. It's well known now. Your argument means that you are just unsophisticated or ever spend time with a man that feels he's a woman or vice versa. They're basically honest people. They're not perverts and by the way, again, I played a piece about that, right? There's a woman who's in the newsnow.com. It's documenting all the people who who are sexually active with kids. It turns out the largest group are pastors. Second largest group, politicians and relatives. Okay, so let's clean that up. The people who actually affect kids, the people who are rude and lewd with kids, are in fact, again, pastors, Christians, etc. Redden says, Egberto, both parties understand that government spending on people is more popular than among the people. Democrats want to spend on the people. Republicans want to prevent the spending so that Democrats won't become unstoppably popular. Agreed. All right. The next topic is what we have here. And let me put that on the screen. And then I got to get out of here, my brothers and my sisters. And it goes like this. Titanic pay for corporate CEOs leaves workers drowning. Should we care about the astounding sums now filling the pockets of our top corporate executives? Yes, we should. Can you imagine a president of the United States proposing a federal budget that quadruples the paycheck that go to the top federal officials? Of course not. No president would dare risk watering down that road. This, so says Sam Pizzat-Cati. He is a journalist from inequality.org. America's taxpayers, our top polls understand, have a distinct aversion to seeing anyone get rich off of their tax dollars. Pay rates for top executives within the federal government reflect that aversion. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has, for instance, over 80,000 employees, and the work these employees do can literally make the difference between life and death for millions of people in the world. Yet the top executives at HHS, Javier Becerra, last year took home less than $250,000 in compensation. Within corporate America's top executive suites, by contrast, $250,000 wouldn't even rate as a decent paycheck for a mere week's worth of labor. Last year's highest paid U.S. CEOs pocketed over $250,000 per day. Should we care about these astounding sums now filling the pockets of our top executives? Yes, we should. Unlike cabinet secretaries like Javier Becerra, corporate execs are getting rich off our tax dollars. Large numbers of these execs are either running corporations with massive federal contracts or annually raking in fistfuls of federal subsidies. So all those overspending that we do are going to corporations who, again, don't want to pay taxes. So they take our monies and at the same time, they don't want to pay taxes. Need some specifics? Consider the pharmaceutical industry and the race against COVID. Back in 2012, notes a just published fierce pharma analysis. 5 biopharma CEOs pocketed over $18 million in annual compensation. Last year, biopharma 15 highest paid executives all took home at least $19 million. Their ranks include the CEOs and the 2 most prominent COVID vaccine firms, Pfizer, Albert Bourla, and Moderna, Stefan Bancel. In 2022, their paychecks together total over $52 million. What did executives like these 2 CEOs do to reap the immense windfalls? Nothing they did. They served a COVID wave of tax dollars. That wave enabled their personal success, notes a Health Affairs Journal analyst. The government invested extensively in every aspect of basic science, preclinical development and clinical trials of the vaccine. Tax dollars even reduced manufacturing risk by underwriting capacity investments. Overall, as the data from the People's Vaccine Alliance would show, the excessive profits Big Pharma got made off COVID vaccines created at least 9 new billion-dollar fortunes in the pandemic first year alone. In other words, they benefited from our pain. Folks, that is something we need to solve. Now, I got to get out of here and start packing. I leave at 2 in the morning to Chicago, and I got to make sure everything is set up perfectly. So I want to use the last few minutes to ask you guys to support the show and also support the trip that we're taking. So if you want to be so kind, please support our trip to Chicago mañana, tomorrow, by going to our PayPal, and you can see all the offers we have. politicsdoneright.com/NN23, politicsdoneright.com/NN23, and support the program. Here we have it right on the screen. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. We have a lot of offers with this. So if you're so kind, please support the trip. We're going to have interviews. We're going to have direct links, all that good stuff. And your name is also, those who support us will be on every video when we release it onto YouTube, etc. Egberto, if you know an interview is coming in advance, please let us know so we can prep some questions. I don't have the list of people I'm interviewing yet, so that may be a bit difficult, but I'll try my best because, like I said, 1-person operation and I'm doing everything, searching, whatever. I'll try my best. I promise I'll try my best. Your 6 a.m. show from airport. The 6 a.m. show is already sent to all the different factions, so you can see it on video. You can see it everywhere. So it'll also be on air. So all of that is already scheduled and set up, my dear brother, Eric Hayes. So please, folks, you can also support the program on a sustaining level or single level by going to politicsdoneright.com/support, politicsdoneright.com/support. So please support us. politicsdoneright.com/support for the program in general and specific to Chicago. politicsdoneright.com/NN23. Thank you so kindly. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. You guys know how I end this program. I am what? Out. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.